Alice sat at the kitchen table, meticulously arranging flowers in a vase. Sunlight streamed through the window, casting a warm glow on the morning routine she had perfected over the years. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, a small comfort in their otherwise strained household. Noah entered the kitchen, his suit impeccably tailored, a stark contrast to the casual wear Alice preferred. His phone buzzed incessantly, a reminder of the empire he was building. "Noah, can you please put your phone away for breakfast?" Alice asked softly, hoping to bridge the growing distance between them. He glanced at her, a flicker of guilt crossing his features before he masked it with a professional demeanor. "Just one more email, Alice. The board meeting is in an hour." She sighed, trying to maintain her composure. "It's been 10 years, Noah. I need more than just emails and late nights." Their teenage son, Dylan, swaggered into the kitchen, earbuds in, oblivious to the tension. "Mom, can you help me with my homework later?" Alice forced a smile, placing the flowers on the table. "Of course, Dylan. Right after breakfast." Noah moved to grab his coffee, the silence heavy between them. Alice watched him, memories of happier times lingering in her mind. She reached out, touching his arm gently. "We used to talk about everything. Where did we go wrong?" He paused, meeting her gaze briefly before returning to his phone. "We're doing fine, Alice. I just have a lot on my plate." Margaret, Dylan's grandmother, entered the kitchen, her presence commanding. "Dylan, remember to set the table, and Alice, don't forget your appointment this afternoon." Alice nodded, glancing at Noah, who barely acknowledged her. "I'll be there, Margaret." As Margaret left, Dylan rolled his eyes, muttering something under his breath. Alice took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their fractured family. She glanced at Noah once more, longing for the connection they once had, but finding only the reflection of his ambitions and the void it created between them. Later that evening, Alice sat alone in the living room, the house quiet, except for the distant hum of Noah's late-night work calls. She looked around their home, filled with memories that now felt like chains, binding her to a life that no longer brought her joy. The realization settled in. Something had to change, but she wasn't sure where to begin. Alice was jolted awake by a sharp pain pounding at the base of her skull. She reached for the alarm clock, noticing it was already 10 minutes past dawn. Groaning, she sat up, massaging her temples in an attempt to ease the throbbing. The persistent headaches had become more frequent lately, disrupting her mornings and lingering into her days. Noah was already at his desk, papers scattered everywhere, his concentration unwavering despite Alice's attempts to engage him. She glanced over at him, hoping for a moment of connection, but he remained absorbed in his work, barely acknowledging her presence. "Another headache?" Noah asked without looking up, his tone neutral. Alice nodded, trying to keep her frustration in check. "It's been happening more often. I think I need to see a doctor." Noah sighed, finally meeting her eyes. "You're always busy with something, Alice. Maybe it's just stress." She frowned, not convinced. "It's not just stress, Noah. I feel like something's seriously wrong." Before Noah could respond, Dylan burst into the kitchen, his voice loud and impatient. "Mom, can you make sure I have everything for soccer today? I don't want to be late." Again. Alice forced a smile, feeling the weight of her own struggles while tending to her son's demands. "I'll make sure you're all set, Dylan." As Dylan left, Alice felt a pang of loneliness despite the bustling household. She knew she couldn't ignore the pain any longer. Determined, she reached for her phone and made an appointment with a doctor, the decision marking the first step toward confronting the challenges that lay ahead. Alice sat quietly in the doctor's office, her hands nervously twisting the bracelet on her wrist. The room was sterile, the hum of fluorescent lights adding to her unease. Dr. Harris entered, her expression serious yet compassionate. "Alice, I have the results of your tests." Dr. Harris began, taking a seat across from her. "I'm sorry to say that you have a brain tumor. It's aggressive, and we estimate that you have about 6 months." Alice felt the words hit her like a tidal wave. 6 months, she whispered, her voice breaking. "Is there anything I can do?" Dr. Harris nodded gently. "There are treatment options to manage the symptoms and possibly extend your time, but the prognosis is unfortunately not promising." Tears welled up in Alice's eyes, as she processed the news. I need some time to think." Later that evening, Alice returned home, the weight of the diagnosis pressing down on her. She found Noah in his study, engrossed in work as usual. Taking a deep breath, she decided to share her news. "Noah, we need to talk," she said, her voice trembling. He looked up from his laptop, concern flickering in his eyes. "Sure. What's going on?" Alice took a seat opposite him, struggling to find the right words. "I have a brain tumor. The doctors say I have about 6 months." Noah's face remained impassive, his eyes darting to the clock on the wall. "Is there something we need to do? Treatments?" She shook her head, feeling a surge of frustration. "I need your support, Noah. This isn't just about me anymore." Noah sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Alice, you know how demanding my job is. I can't just drop everything." Her frustration boiled over. "That's exactly the problem. You never have time for me, for our family. Now that I need you, you're too busy to care." Noah stood up, avoiding her gaze. "I can't help you the way you want. Maybe this is too much for us." Alice felt a mix of anger and hurt. "So what? You're just going to abandon me when I need you. At the most, after 10 years of marriage." Noah opened his mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. He turned back to his work, leaving Alice alone with her pain. As the door closed behind him, Alice felt a profound sense of isolation. The realization that Noah wasn't there for her hit her hard, solidifying her decision that something had to change. She stood up, wiping away her tears, and looked around their empty home. It was time to find her own path, to seek the peace and support she desperately needed. Alice stared blankly at the mirror, her reflection showing more weariness than she felt inside. The diagnosis weighed heavily on her, but the thought of upheaving her entire life was paralyzing. She reached for her phone, her fingers hovering over Noah's contact, but hesitation kept her from dialing. The idea of confronting him again, especially now, seemed overwhelming. That evening she sat in the dimly lit living room, the sounds of Noah's late-night work calls echoing through the house. Dylan was upstairs, immersed in his own world, oblivious to the turmoil brewing below. Margaret's constant criticism added another layer of stress, making Alice question if seeking help was even worth the effort. "I can't just leave everything behind," Alice whispered to herself, tears welling up. The comfort of routine and the fear of the unknown held her back from making any immediate changes. She convinced herself that she could handle everything on her own, that reaching out would only add to Noah's burdens. Days turned into weeks as Alice tried to maintain the facade of normalcy. She attended her appointments alone, avoided deep conversations, and buried herself in household chores. Despite the pain and the relentless progression of her illness, she resisted the urge to fully embrace the reality of her situation, hoping that denial might somehow offer her a semblance of peace. But as her strength waned, the facade became harder to maintain, and the silent struggle within her grew more intense. Alice stood by the window, watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. The beauty of the evening contrasted sharply with the turmoil raging inside her. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision she was about to make pressing down on her chest. Earlier that day, after another futile conversation with Noah, Alice had reached her breaking point. The finality of his abandonment echoed in her mind, leaving her with a profound sense of loss and determination. She couldn't continue living in a marriage where her pain was dismissed and her needs ignored. The realization that she needed to prioritize her own well-being and peace had solidified in her heart. With trembling hands, she began packing her belongings. Each item she placed in the suitcase felt like shedding a layer of the life she had known for the past decade. Photos of happier times, mementos of their life together, and personal items were all methodically packed away. The act was both liberating and heartbreaking, symbolizing her departure from a past that no longer served her. "Dylan, can you help me with something?" Alice called out, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling within her. Her teenage son trudged into the room, his expression guarded. "Sure, Mom, what do you need?" She handed him a small box. "I need you to pack this and keep it safe for me. It's important." Dylan glanced at the box, sensing the gravity of the moment. What's inside? Alice gave him a reassuring smile. Just some things I want you to have when I'm not around. Trust me. As Dylan nodded and began to comply, Alice felt a mixture of hope and sorrow. She wanted to believe that leaving would bring her the peace she so desperately sought, but part of her feared the unknown that lay ahead. The next morning, with everything packed and her decision made, Alice stood at the front door, suitcase in hand. Margaret arrived to see her off, her usual stern demeanor softened by an unexpected compassion. "Alice, are you sure about this?" Margaret asked, her voice tinged with genuine concern. Alice met her gaze, determination shining in her eyes. "I have to, Margaret. I need to find my own peace, away from all the chaos." Margaret sighed, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I hope this is what's best for you." With a final nod, Alice turned and walked away from the home that had become a symbol of her unfulfilled desires and unmet needs. The drive to the small coastal town was long and silent, giving her time to reflect on the life she was leaving behind and the uncertain future that awaited her. Upon arrival, the quaint town welcomed her with its serene beaches and tight-knit community. Alice found a small cottage overlooking the ocean, a place where she could breathe and heal. As she settled into her new environment, she felt a sense of freedom she hadn't experienced in years. The sound of waves crashing against the shore became a soothing balm for her weary soul. In the weeks that followed, Alice began to embrace her new life. She took long walks along the beach, allowing the salty air to cleanse her spirit. She explored the town, meeting neighbors who offered kindness and understanding without any hidden agendas. Slowly, the pain of her diagnosis began to coexist with moments of joy and self-discovery. One afternoon, as she sat on her porch watching the sunset, Alice realized that leaving Noah was not just an act of abandonment, but a courageous step toward reclaiming her happiness. She had crossed the threshold into a new chapter, one where she could face her challenges with strength and grace. The decision to leave marked the point of no return for Alice. There was no going back to the life she had known, but she felt ready to forge a new path, one filled with hope, resilience, and the promise of inner peace. As the sun set on her old life, Alice welcomed the dawn of her new beginning, determined to make the most of the time she had left. Alice walked along the quiet beach, the gentle waves lapping at her feet, offering a semblance of peace she desperately sought. The salty air filled her lungs, each breath a reminder of the fresh start she had chosen. As she wandered, her thoughts tangled between the reality of her diagnosis and the overwhelming loneliness that accompanied her departure from Noah. One afternoon, Alice decided to visit the local clinic for her regular checkups. The quaint town's medical facility was modest, yet it exuded a warmth that contrasted sharply with the sterile environment she had left behind. Inside, the waiting room was cozy, adorned with soft pastel colors and comfortable seating. She took a seat near the window, watching families and individuals go about their day, each with their own stories and struggles. After what felt like an eternity, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a reassuring smile entered the room. "Alice Thompson," she called out gently. Alice stood, her heart pounding with a mix of anxiety and hope. "Yes, that's me." The woman extended her hand. "I'm Dr. Michael Bennett. It's nice to meet you." Alice shook his hand, feeling an immediate sense of trust. "Nice to meet you too, Dr. Bennett." They sat down, and Michael reviewed her medical records. With a thoughtful expression, "I'm sorry to hear about your diagnosis, Alice. I know this must be incredibly difficult for you." Alice nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "It is. I'm still trying to come to terms with everything." Michael leaned forward, his demeanor compassionate yet professional. "I want you to know that you're not alone in this. We're here to support you in any way we can, not just medically but emotionally as well." She looked into his eyes, sensing his genuine concern. "Thank you, it means a lot to hear that." Michael paused, choosing his words carefully. "I've worked with many patients facing similar diagnoses, and I've seen how challenging it can be, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. It's important to find support systems that can help you navigate this journey." Alice sighed, feeling a slight easing of the burden she had been carrying. I've tried talking to Noah, but it hasn't been easy. He's distant. Michael nodded understandingly. Relationships can become strained in times like these. It might help to connect with a counselor or a support group. Sometimes, sharing your experiences with others who understand can provide immense relief. She looked down, contemplating his words. I never thought about joining a support group. I guess I've been so focused on everything else that I forgot to take care of myself. Michael smiled warmly. It's never too late to start. And remember, seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness. You deserve to have support as you navigate this. Alice felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. Maybe you're right. I need to find a way to cope, not just for me, but for Dylan too. Michael reached out, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You're already taking the first step by acknowledging your needs. Let's work together to create a plan that supports you both physically and emotionally. As their conversation continued, Alice felt a sense of relief she hadn't experienced in months. Michael's presence was calming, his words providing a roadmap through the uncertainty that lay ahead. She realized that while leaving Noah had been a painful decision, it was necessary for her own well-being. After the appointment, Alice decided to take Michael's advice. She signed up for a local support group and began attending counseling sessions. Slowly, she started to rebuild her sense of self, finding strength in the connections she made and the support she received. Michael became a steady presence in her life, offering guidance and understanding without judgment. One evening, as the sun set over the ocean, Alice sat on her porch reflecting on the changes she had embraced. Meeting Michael had been a pivotal moment in her journey, marking the beginning of her path toward healing and self-discovery. With each passing day, she felt a little more empowered to face the challenges ahead, knowing that she had allies who truly cared. In Michael, Alice found not just a medical professional, but a mentor who helped her navigate the complexities of her diagnosis and the emotional turmoil it brought. His unwavering support became a cornerstone of her resilience, allowing her to find hope and purpose even in the darkest of times. Alice woke up to the sound of seagulls calling overhead, the gentle crash of waves against the shore serving as a constant, soothing backdrop to her new life. The cottage she had moved into was small but charming, with large windows that framed breathtaking views of the ocean. Today felt different. She felt a subtle shift within herself, a readiness to embrace the unknown that lay ahead. After a leisurely breakfast of freshly baked bread and herbal tea, Alice decided it was time to take Michael's advice seriously. She walked down the narrow path leading to the community center, the sun casting a golden hue over the quaint town. Each step felt like a step away from her past and a step toward healing. Inside the community center, the atmosphere was warm and inviting. Soft music played in the background, and the scent of lavender filled the air. Alice glanced around, spotting a group of people seated in a circle, sharing their stories. Taking a deep breath, she approached the sign-up desk. "Hi, I'm Alice," she introduced herself to the receptionist, who smiled warmly. "I'd like to join the support group." "Of course, Alice. We meet every Tuesday evening. It's a safe space where everyone shares and supports each other," the receptionist replied, handing her a schedule. Feeling a mix of anxiety and hope, Alice took a seat near the back, watching as others began to share their experiences. When it was her turn, she hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I'm dealing with a terminal illness and the end of my marriage. It's been incredibly hard, and I'm trying to find a way to cope." The group listened attentively, offering nods and empathetic smiles. As the meeting progressed, Alice felt a sense of camaraderie she hadn't felt in years. Sharing her pain openly was both terrifying and liberating, a crucial step in her journey toward healing. After the meeting, Alice lingered, engaging in conversations with a few members who shared similar struggles. One woman, Karen, offered her a comforting hug. "You're not alone, Alice. We're here for you." Feeling lighter, Alice walked back to her cottage, the evening air cool and refreshing. She reflected on the day's events, realizing how much she had isolated herself in her grief and illness. Opening up to others had sparked a glimmer of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. That night, as Alice sat on her porch watching the moonlight dance on the waves, Michael joined her with 2 cups of tea. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the bond between them deepening. "You did great today," Michael said softly. "Taking that first step is never easy, but it's essential." Alice nodded, sipping her tea. "It was scary, but it felt right. I'm starting to understand that I need to lean on others, not just fight alone." Michael smiled. "Exactly. You don't have to carry this burden by yourself. Letting others in doesn't make you weak. It makes you stronger." Encouraged by his words, Alice felt a renewed sense of purpose. She began to embrace her new life more fully, participating in community activities, exploring her interests and building meaningful connections. Each day brought new challenges, but also new opportunities for growth and self-discovery. One afternoon, while volunteering at the local library, Alice found herself organizing a charity event to raise funds for cancer research. The project ignited a passion within her, a desire to make a positive impact despite her limited time. Working alongside Michael and other community members, she felt a sense of fulfillment that had been missing from her marriage. As weeks turned into months, Alice transformed. The once weary woman now radiated strength and resilience, her spirit unbroken by the trials she faced. She discovered new facets of herself: creativity, leadership, and an unwavering determination to leave a meaningful legacy for Dylan. Through the support of her mentor Michael and the friendship she forged, Alice crossed the first threshold of her hero's journey. She had moved beyond the familiar confines of her past life, stepping into a world where she could heal, grow, and ultimately find peace. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, Alice felt ready to embrace whatever came her way. Alice woke up to the sound of seagulls calling overhead, the gentle crash of waves against the shore serving as a constant and soothing backdrop for her new life. The cottage she had moved to was small but charming, with large windows, framing breathtaking views of the ocean. Today she felt a subtle shift within herself, a readiness to embrace the unknown that awaited her. After a peaceful breakfast of freshly baked bread and herbal tea, Alice decided to take Michael's advice more seriously. She walked along the narrow path leading to the community center, the sun casting a golden hue over the picturesque town. Each step seemed to distance her from her past and draw her closer to healing. Inside the community center, the atmosphere was warm and welcoming. Soft music played in the background, and the scent of lavender filled the air. Alice looked around, spotting a group of people sitting in a circle, sharing their stories. Taking a deep breath, she approached the sign-up desk. "Hi, I'm Alice." She introduced herself to the receptionist, who smiled warmly. "I'd like to join the support group." "Of course, Alice. We meet every Tuesday evening. It's a safe space where everyone shares and supports each other," the receptionist replied, handing her a schedule. Feeling a mix of anxiety and hope, Alice took a seat near the back, watching as others began to share their experiences. When it was her turn, she hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I'm dealing with a terminal illness and the end of my marriage. It's been incredibly difficult and I'm trying to find a way to cope." The group listened attentively, offering nods and empathetic smiles. As the meeting progressed, Alice felt a sense of camaraderie she hadn't felt in years. Sharing her pain openly was both terrifying and liberating, a crucial step in her journey toward healing. After the meeting, Alice stayed behind, engaging in conversations with some members who were facing similar struggles. A woman named Karen offered her a comforting hug. "You're not alone, Alice. We're here for you." Feeling lighter, Alice walked back to her cottage, the evening air cool and refreshing. She reflected on the day's events, realizing how much she had isolated herself in her grief and illness. Opening up to others had sparked a spark of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. That night, as Alice sat on the porch watching the moonlight dance on the waves, Michael joined her with 2 cups of tea. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the bond between them deepening. "You did great today," Michael said softly. "Taking that first step is never easy, but it's essential." Alice nodded, savoring her tea. "It was scary, but it felt right. I'm starting to understand that I need to lean on others, not just fight alone." Michael smiled. "Exactly. You don't have to carry this burden by yourself. Letting others in doesn't make you weak. It makes you stronger. Encouraged by his words, Alice felt a renewed sense of purpose. She began to embrace her new life, more fully, participating in community activities, exploring her interests and building meaningful connections. Each day brought new challenges, but also new opportunities for growth and self-discovery. One afternoon, while volunteering at the local library, Alice found herself organizing a charity event to raise funds for cancer research. The project ignited a passion within her, a desire to make a positive impact despite the limited time she had left. Working alongside Michael and other community members, she felt a sense of fulfillment that had been missing from her marriage. As the weeks turned into months, Alice underwent a transformation. The once weary woman now radiated strength and resilience, her spirit unbroken by the trials she faced. She discovered new facets of herself, creativity, leadership, and an unwavering determination to leave a meaningful legacy for Dylan. However, not everything in Alice's new life was peaceful. Dylan's visits to the coastal town became less frequent, tense due to Margaret's persistent influence. During one visit, Dylan arrived looking worn and distant, his usual confident demeanor replaced by a reserved expression. "Hi, Mum," he greeted, forcing a smile as he entered the cottage. Alice stood to embrace him, but Dylan recoiled slightly, pulling away. "We need to talk," he said, his tone curt. Concerned, Alice followed him to the living room. "What's wrong, Dylan?" He hesitated, looking around as if searching for the right words. "It's about Grandma. She's been telling me things, saying you've been distant and that you're not handling everything well." Alice felt a pang of frustration. "Dylan, I'm dealing with a lot right now. Your grandmother can be overly controlling, but I'm doing my best." Dylan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I just don't understand why you left Noah. Maybe if things were different, we wouldn't be in this mess." Before Alice could respond, the doorbell rang. Michael entered the cottage, sensing the growing tension. "Hello, Dylan, it's good to see you." Dylan gave a small nod, but his gaze alternated between Alice and Michael with underlying tension. "Hi, Michael." Michael approached, sensing the discomfort. "Is everything okay here?" Alice exchanged a look with Michael, who gave a subtle nod of reassurance. "Dylan, we need to address this. Your grandmother's influence is affecting you and it's harming our relationship." Dylan looked down, struggling with conflicting emotions. "I know, Mom, it's just not easy to see you like this. And Noah, he's still a big part of our lives." Alice took a deep breath, striving to maintain her composure. "Noah and I had our struggles, Dylan. I left because I needed to find myself, to survive. I hope you can understand that someday." Dylan nodded slowly, the anger in his eyes softening. "I'm trying, Mom. It's just not easy." Michael intervened gently. "Maybe we can find a way to bridge the gap, support each other through this difficult time." Alice reached out, placing a hand on Dylan's shoulder. "We're a family, Dylan. We need to stick together, no matter what." Dylan met her gaze, a hint of vulnerability breaking through. "I'll try, Mom, for you and for Noah." At that moment, Alice felt a sense of closure and hope. Confronting him allowed her to release some of the lingering resentment, freeing her to continue her journey toward healing. Back at the hospital, Alice continued to engage with her support group, sharing her experiences and offering encouragement to others. Her interactions with Sarah and James deepened, forming bonds that transcended their individual struggles. Together, they navigated the complexities of their diagnoses, finding strength in their shared resilience. One afternoon, after a particularly inspiring group session, Alice sat with Michael in the garden, the sky painted with the colors of twilight. "Have you ever thought about what you want your legacy to be?" Michael asked, breaking the comfortable silence. Alice pondered the question, gazing at the horizon where the sun was setting. "I want to leave something meaningful for Dylan, something that shows him that even in the darkest times, there's hope and strength to be found." Michael nodded thoughtfully. "That's a beautiful aspiration. How do you plan to achieve that?" Alice smiled softly. "I'm starting to write a book. It's a collection of stories and reflections from my journey. I want to share what I've learned, not just for Dylan, but for anyone who might be going through something similar." Michael looked impressed, That sounds incredible, Alice. I have no doubt it will inspire many. Encouraged by Michael's support, Alice threw herself into her writing, pouring her heart and soul into each page. The act of writing became therapeutic, allowing her to process her emotions and solidify her sense of self. Her story was one of pain and abandonment, but also of resilience and self-discovery. However, the challenges were far from over. Dylan's visits remained tense, his anger and frustration still simmering beneath the surface. During one visit, he arrived unannounced, his eyes tired and his demeanor withdrawn. "Mom, we need to talk," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Alice looked at him, sensing the underlying tension. "Sure, Dylan. What's on your mind?" He hesitated, running a hand through his hair. "I saw your book. I didn't know you were writing something like that." Alice felt a flicker of hope. "Yes, I wanted to share my story. I thought it might help others, including us." Dylan looked away, a mixture of emotions crossing his face. "I guess I never realized how much you were going through. I've been so caught up with everything else." Alice reached out, placing a hand on his arm. "It's never too late to start understanding, Dylan. We can work through this together." In that moment, Alice felt a sense of closure and hope. The possibility of reconciling with Noah was tempting, but she wasn't sure if it was the right path for her healing journey. She turned to Michael, who had been silently observing the interaction. "Should I consider letting him back into my life?" she asked, seeking guidance. Michael placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Only you can decide what's best for you, Alice. It's important to prioritize your well-being and what truly brings you peace." Alice nodded thoughtfully, knowing that whatever decision she made, it needed to align with her newfound strength and the support system she had built. The crisis of Noah's return forced her to confront unresolved emotions and consider the possibility of forgiveness and renewal. In the midst of this internal struggle, Alice's health took a sharp decline. The aggressive nature of her cancer left her bedridden, the once vibrant woman now fighting a relentless battle. Her writing became her lifeline, each word a testament to her resilience and determination to leave a lasting legacy. One night, as Alice lay in her hospital bed, surrounded by the soft glow of moonlight filtering through the window, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The journey had been arduous, filled with pain and heartache, but she had emerged stronger and more self-aware. The crisis of Noah's return had been a turning point, pushing her to reconcile with her past and embrace her present. In her final days, Alice completed her book, pouring every ounce of her remaining strength into the final chapters. She wanted Dylan to know that despite the hardships, she had found strength and hope. The book was not just a collection of her experiences, but a beacon of resilience for anyone facing similar struggles. As the sun rose on the day of her passing, Alice felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She had navigated the depths of her despair, confronted her demons, and found a way to leave a meaningful legacy. The crisis she had faced had ultimately led to her turnaround, allowing her to embrace her true self and the love that had always been there, waiting to be rediscovered. Noah, upon hearing the news, rushed to the cottage, hoping for one last chance to say goodbye. He found Alice peacefully resting, a serene smile on her face. Kneeling beside her, he took her hand gently, tears streaming down his face. "Alice, I'm so sorry," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "I should have never left you." She opened her eyes, her gaze meeting his with unwavering love. "It's okay, Noah. You're here now, and that's what matters." With those final words, Alice passed away, leaving behind a legacy of love, strength, and forgiveness. Noah was left to grapple with his grief and regret, determined to honor Alice's memory by cherishing the lessons she had imparted and the love she had so deeply shared. Alice sat quietly in the hospital garden, the cool evening breeze gently rustling the leaves of the surrounding trees. The vibrant colors of the sunset painted the sky, a stark contrast to the turmoil she felt inside. Her body ached from the latest round of treatments, each one pushing her closer to her limits. Yet, amidst the pain, a sense of determination began to kindle within her. Michael approached, his steps measured and his expression filled with concern. He carried a small notebook, the pages filled with Alice's thoughts and reflections. "I thought you might want to add something before we meet with the support group tomorrow," he said softly, handing her the notebook. Alice took the notebook, her fingers tracing the neat handwriting. "Thank you, Michael. Your support means more than I can express." He nodded, taking a seat beside her. "You've come so far, Alice, but I know it hasn't been easy." She sighed, leaning back against the bench. "Some days feel like a never-ending battle. I'm trying to stay strong for Dylan, but it's exhausting." Michael placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone in this. We're all here to help you through." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden, sharp pain that shot through Alice's head. She winced, clutching her temples as the room seemed to spin around her. Michael quickly moved to her side, concern etched on his face. "Alice, are you okay?" he asked urgently. She struggled to breathe, the pain intensifying with each passing second. I don't know," she managed to whisper, her vision blurring. Without hesitation, Michael supported her weight and helped her stand. "Let's get you back inside. You need to rest." They made their way to the nearby clinic, the walk feeling interminable. Alice's legs felt like lead, and every step was a reminder of her fragile state. Upon reaching the clinic, Michael swiftly guided her to a comfortable chair and called for assistance. Within minutes, a nurse arrived, checking Alice's vitals and administering medication to alleviate the pain. As the immediate crisis passed, Alice slumped back into the chair, exhausted both physically and emotionally. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The nurse gave her a sympathetic smile before leaving them alone. Michael stayed by her side, his presence a comforting constant. "You pushed yourself too hard today, Alice. You need to take it easy." She shook her head weakly. "I can't afford to slow down, Michael. There's so much I want to accomplish before it's too late." Michael looked into her eyes, seeing the unwavering resolve that had driven her through so many challenges. "What do you want to accomplish?" Alice took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "I want to finish my book. I want Dylan to have something tangible to remember me by, something that shows him that I fought until the end." Michael nodded thoughtfully. "That's a beautiful legacy, but you need to pace yourself. Your health has to come first." She closed her eyes, the weight of his words settling over her. "I know, but I can't keep putting it off. Every day feels like a gift, and I want to make the most of it." As the days turned into weeks, Alice's condition continued to decline. The once steady rhythm of her life was now punctuated by hospital visits, treatments, and moments of intense pain. Despite the mounting challenges, her determination never wavered. She dedicated herself to her writing, pouring every ounce of her remaining strength into each page. Dylan's visits became less frequent, his own struggles mirroring the tension within their family. Margaret's influence remained a persistent shadow, her criticisms and disapproval adding to the strain. During one particularly heated visit, Margaret confronted Alice with a mixture of anger and disappointment. "You're wasting your life here," Margaret declared, her voice sharp. "You should be fighting to save your marriage, not running away." Alice stood her ground, her eyes meeting Margaret's with unwavering resolve. "My marriage was already failing when I left, Margaret. I'm not running away. I'm fighting for my own survival and happiness." Margaret scoffed, shaking her head in disbelief. "Survival? Your peace comes at the expense of our family's unity. You've abandoned your responsibilities." Alice felt her frustration boil over. Responsibilities? To what, Margaret? To a man who abandoned me when I needed him the most? To a family that supports someone who doesn't deserve it? Before the argument could escalate further, Michael entered the room, sensing the tension. "Margaret, maybe it's time to leave Alice alone. She's doing what she needs to do." Margaret glared at him for a moment before turning on her heel and leaving the cottage. The confrontation left Alice feeling drained but resolute. She knew that standing up to Margaret was essential for her own peace and the healing of her family. Meanwhile, Noah's remorse deepened. He couldn't shake the feeling of loss and regret that gnawed at him daily. Determined to make amends, he reached out to Alice, seeking a chance to reconcile. Their interactions were tense, laden with unspoken emotions, and lingering resentment. One evening, Noah visited the cottage unannounced. His presence was a mix of desperation and sincerity, eyes filled with the weight of his past mistakes. "Alice," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "I need to talk to you." She looked at him, seeing the genuine remorse reflected in his eyes. "Noah, what do you want?" He took a hesitant step forward, struggling to find the right words. "I've been thinking a lot about everything. About us. I was wrong to leave you when you needed me the most. I regret it every day." Alice felt a whirlwind of emotions, anger, hurt, and a faint glimmer of hope. "Why now, Noah? Why after everything that's happened?" Noah sighed, his shoulders slumping with the weight of his guilt. "I couldn't live with myself knowing I abandoned you. I want to make things right, even if it's just as friends. I want to be there for you and Dylan in whatever way I can." She took a deep breath, considering his words. The past 10 years of neglect and emotional abandonment had left deep scars, but seeing the sincerity in his eyes stirred something within her. "Noah, it's not that simple. You left when I was drowning, and no amount of regret can change that." He stepped closer, reaching out to gently touch her arm. "I know I can't change the past, but I want to help you now. Let me be there. For you, if you'll let me." Alice looked down, struggling with the tumultuous emotions inside her. She had built a new life, found strength in her community, and forged meaningful connections. Yet a part of her still longed for the love and support she had lost. "I don't know, Noah. I need time to think about what's best for me and Dylan." He nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. "Take all the time you need. I'm here when you're ready." As Noah left, Alice felt a complex mix of relief and uncertainty. The possibility of reconciling with Noah was tempting, but she wasn't sure if it was the right path for her healing journey. She turned to Michael, who had been silently observing the interaction. "Should I consider letting him back into my life?" she asked, seeking guidance. Michael placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Only you can decide what's best for you, Alice. It's important to prioritize your well-being and what truly brings you peace." Alice nodded thoughtfully, knowing that whatever decision she made, it needed to align with her newfound strength and the support system she had built. The crisis of Noah's return forced her to confront unresolved emotions and consider the possibility of forgiveness and renewal. In the midst of this internal struggle, Alice's health took a sharp decline. The aggressive nature of her cancer left her bedridden, the once vibrant woman now fighting a relentless battle. Her writing became her lifeline, each word a testament to her resilience and determination to leave a lasting legacy. One night, as Alice lay in her hospital bed, surrounded by the soft glow of moonlight filtering through the window, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The journey had been arduous, filled with pain and heartache, but she had emerged stronger and more self-aware. The crisis of Noah's return had been a turning point, pushing her to reconcile with her past and embrace her present. In her final days, Alice completed her book, pouring every ounce of her remaining strength into the final chapters. She wanted Dylan to know that despite the hardships, she had found strength and hope. The book was not just a collection of her experiences, but a beacon of resilience for anyone facing similar struggles. As the sun rose on the day of her passing, Alice felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She had navigated the depths of her despair, confronted her demons, and found a way to leave a meaningful legacy. The crisis she had faced had ultimately led to her turnaround, allowing her to embrace her true self and the love that had always been there, waiting to be rediscovered. Noah, upon hearing the news, rushed to the cottage, hoping for one last chance to say goodbye. He found Alice peacefully resting, a serene smile on her face. Kneeling beside her, he took her hand gently, tears streaming down his face. "Alice, I'm so sorry," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "I should have never left you." She opened her eyes, her gaze meeting his with unwavering love. "It's okay, Noah. You're here now, and that's what matters." With those final words, Alice passed away, leaving behind a legacy of love, strength, and forgiveness. Noah was left to grapple with his grief and regret, determined to honor Alice's memory by cherishing the lessons she had imparted and the love she had so deeply shared. Alice lay in her hospital bed, the sterile white sheets contrasting sharply with the vibrant memories she held dear. The once lively cottage now seemed a distant dream, replaced by the harsh reality of her deteriorating health. Each breath was a struggle, every heartbeat a reminder of the limited time she had left. Despite the pain, a sense of clarity began to settle over her, sharpening her resolve to leave a meaningful legacy for Dylan. One evening, as the sun cast long shadows through the hospital window, Michael entered her room, his expression a mix of concern and determination. He carried a stack of papers and a warm smile that had become a beacon of hope for Alice. "Alice, I've reviewed your latest chapters," Michael said, placing the papers on her bedside table. "You're doing incredible work. This book is going to touch so many lives." She reached out, gently touching his hand. "Thank you, Michael. It's been my way of coping, of making sense of everything." Michael sat beside her, his eyes meeting hers with unwavering support. "You've built something truly beautiful here, but I need to talk to you about something important." Alice sensed the gravity in his tone and nodded, encouraging him to continue. "There's a conference next month where you could present your book. It's a chance to share your story with a wider audience, to inspire others who are facing similar struggles." Alice hesitated, the idea both thrilling and terrifying. "I don't know if I have the strength for that, Michael. My condition is worsening." Michael squeezed her hand gently. "You don't have to do it alone. I'll be there with you every step of the way. It could be a powerful way to leave your mark." Tears welled up in Alice's eyes as she contemplated the offer. The thought of speaking publicly about her journey filled her with both fear and hope. Maybe it's time to embrace the legacy I want to leave behind. Days turned into weeks, and Alice began preparing for the conference. Her health fluctuated, but the prospect of sharing her story fueled her determination. She spent hours refining her manuscript, each word a testament to her resilience and unwavering spirit. Dylan visited more frequently, their relationship slowly mending as he witnessed his mother's unwavering strength. Margaret's hostility persisted, her visits marked by bitterness and recrimination. During one particularly tense encounter, Margaret confronted Alice with a mix of anger and sorrow. "You're trying to play the martyr, Alice. Do you really think anyone cares about your little book?" Alice stood her ground, her voice steady despite the emotional turmoil. "This book is about more than just me, Margaret. It's about finding strength in the face of adversity and the importance of self-love. Maybe it's something you need to hear too." Margaret scoffed, shaking her head in disbelief. "You think your story is going to fix everything? You've abandoned your family, and now you want to preach about hope." Before the argument could escalate, Michael stepped in, his presence a calming force. "Margaret, Alice is doing something incredible. Let's support her instead of tearing her down." Margaret glared at him for a moment, before turning on her heel and leaving the room. The confrontation left Alice feeling drained but resolute. She knew that standing up to Margaret was essential for her own peace and the healing of her family. As the conference date approached, Alice's health took a sharp decline. The aggressive nature of her cancer left her bedridden, the once vibrant woman now fighting a relentless battle. Her writing became her lifeline, each word a testament to her resilience and determination to leave a lasting legacy. On the morning of the conference, Alice felt a surge of conflicting emotions. Fear, hope, and a deep sense of purpose swirled within her. With Michael's unwavering support, she made her way to the auditorium, her heart pounding in her chest. As she stood on the stage, the bright lights illuminating her frail frame, Alice took a deep breath. She looked out at the sea of faces, each one a potential source of inspiration and connection. Summoning every ounce of strength, she began to speak, her voice wavering at first but growing steadier with each word. "This is my story," she began, her eyes meeting those of Dylan in the audience. "A story of pain, abandonment, and ultimately, the discovery of my own strength and purpose. I hope that by sharing my journey, I can help others find the resilience they need to overcome their own struggles." The room was silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. As she continued, Alice felt a profound sense of fulfillment wash over her. She had faced her greatest ordeal and emerged with a legacy that would outlive her. As the applause echoed through the auditorium, Alice stepped down from the stage, tears of joy and relief streaming down her face. She had transformed her pain into a beacon of hope, proving that even in the darkest times the human spirit can shine brightly. Later that night, as Alice lay in her hospital bed, the conference a resounding success, she felt a deep sense of peace. She had faced her supreme ordeal with grace and courage, leaving behind a legacy of love and strength for Dylan and everyone she had touched along the way. With a final contented sigh, Alice closed her eyes, knowing that her journey had made a difference. She had embraced her true self and the love that had always been there waiting to be rediscovered. Alice sat in her hospital bed, the soft morning light filtering through the curtains and casting a warm glow across the room. Her body felt weaker than ever, but her spirit remained unbroken. The success of her conference presentation weighed heavily on her heart, bringing a sense of accomplishment she had longed for during her darkest days. Earlier that week, Alice had stood before a packed auditorium, her voice steady, despite the exhaustion that threatened to overwhelm her. She had shared her story of abandonment, resilience, and the journey to self-discovery, hoping to inspire others facing similar struggles. The applause that followed was more than just polite clapping. It was a validation of her strength and the impact of her words. Back at the cottage, Dylan had visited more frequently, each visit bridging the gap that years of neglect had created. Their conversations had grown deeper, filled with understanding and mutual respect. Dylan had seen the transformation in his mother, witnessing her unwavering determination to leave a meaningful legacy despite her limited time. One afternoon, as Alice rested after a particularly grueling treatment session, Dylan entered the room with a stack of her finished manuscript pages. "Mom, I went through your book," he said, his voice tinged with awe. "It's incredible. You've poured so much of yourself into it." Alice smiled weakly, reaching out to take his hand. "I'm glad you think so, Dylan. It was my way of coping, of making sense of everything." He nodded, his eyes reflecting a newfound appreciation. "It's more than that. It's going to help so many people. You've turned your pain into something beautiful." Their bond had grown stronger, the wounds of the past slowly healing under the weight of shared experiences and heartfelt conversations. Michael continued to be a steadfast presence in Alice's life, offering both professional support and personal companionship. Their relationship had evolved into a deep friendship built on trust and mutual respect. Meanwhile, Margaret's visits had become less frequent, her hostility waning as she began to witness the positive changes in Alice and Dylan. During one such visit, Margaret approached Alice with a tentative smile. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, Alice. Maybe I was too harsh before." Alice looked at her grandmother, sensing a genuine desire for reconciliation. "It's never too late to change, Margaret. We all make mistakes." Margaret nodded, slowly, a hint of remorse in her eyes. "I want to try to be better, for Dylan and for us." The shift in Margaret's demeanor brought a sense of relief to Alice, allowing her to focus more on her own healing and the legacy she was creating. She dedicated herself to completing her book, each chapter a reflection of her journey and the lessons she had learned along the way. One evening, as Alice sat by the window watching the sunset, she felt a profound sense of peace. She had faced her greatest challenges with grace and courage, transforming her pain into a beacon of hope for others. The connections she had forged, the friendships she had nurtured, and the love she had rekindled within her family were her true rewards. Dylan approached her with a photo album he had created, filled with pictures and memories of their time together. "I wanted to give you something to remember all the good times," he said, handing her the album. Alice opened it, tears welling up in her eyes as she flipped through the pages. "Thank you, Dylan. This means the world to me." As the days turned into weeks, Alice continued to find strength in her relationships and the legacy she was building. Her health remained fragile, but her spirit was resilient. She knew that her time was limited, but she was determined to leave behind a story of love, strength, and the unyielding human spirit. In her final moments, surrounded by those she loved, Alice felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had navigated the complexities of her illness, the strains of her family relationships, and the turmoil of her own emotions to emerge stronger and more compassionate. Her journey had not only transformed her, but had also touched the lives of those around her, leaving an indelible mark of hope and resilience. Recompensa e reflexão marked the culmination of Alice's heroic journey, a testament to her unwavering determination to find peace and leave a lasting legacy for Dylan and everyone she had touched along the way. Alice lay quietly in her hospital bed, the soft hum of medical equipment a constant reminder of the fragility of her existence. The sun had long set, leaving the room bathed in the gentle glow of bedside lamps. She gazed out the window, watching the moonlight dance on the waves, a sight that had brought her solace in her final days. Michael sat beside her, his presence a comforting anchor amidst the storm of emotions swirling within her. They had grown close over the past months, their bond forged through shared struggles and unwavering support. Tonight, however, there was an undercurrent of tension that neither could ignore. The door to Alice's room opened, and Noah stepped in, his eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and desperation. He looked older, the lines of stress and regret etched deeply into his face. Taking a hesitant step forward, he approached the bedside, his hands trembling slightly. "Alice," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, I need to talk to you." Alice turned her head slowly, meeting his gaze with a mixture of sadness and understanding. "Noah," she replied softly, her voice steady despite the turmoil within her. "Why are you here?" He took a deep breath, gathering the courage to confront his past mistakes. "I couldn't live with myself knowing I abandoned you when you needed me the most. Every day since you left, I felt a void, a constant reminder of what I lost." Tears welled up in Noah's eyes as he reached out, his hand trembling. "I'm so sorry, Alice. I was wrong. I let my ambition blind me to what truly mattered. I regret every moment I wasn't there for you and Dylan." Alice felt a surge of emotions, hurt, forgiveness, and a profound sense of closure. She reached out, placing her hand over his. "Noah, holding on to this pain only hurts us both. I left because I needed to find myself, to survive. But seeing you here, recognizing your mistakes, it means something." Noah's tears flowed freely now, the weight of his regret evident in every drop. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know that I've changed. I've come to realize that success means nothing without the people you love by your side." Alice smiled gently, a tear tracing down her cheek. "It's not about forgiveness, Noah. It's about understanding and moving forward. I've built a new life here, one where I found strength and purpose, but your acknowledgement helps me find peace." Michael watched the interaction with a mix of emotions, proud of the strength Alice displayed. "This is a powerful moment, Alice. You've shown incredible resilience and grace." Alice nodded, her eyes never leaving Noah's. "Thank you, Michael. Your support has been invaluable." Noah took a deep breath, his voice filled with sincerity. "If there's anything I can do, anything at all, to make amends, please let me know. I want to be a part of Dylan's life, to support him as you have." Alice's heart ached for her son, caught in the middle of their fractured family. "Noah, Dylan needs stability and love from both of us. If you're willing to commit, to truly be there, then maybe we can rebuild what was lost." Noah nodded fervently. "I'm committed, Alice. I want to make things right, not just for you, but for Dylan too." As the night deepened, the three of them sat together, the air filled with unspoken promises and the hope of a brighter future. Alice felt a sense of fulfillment wash over her, knowing that her journey had not only transformed her, but also began to heal the wounds of her family. In those final moments, surrounded by love and understanding, Alice found the peace she had long sought. Her legacy was not just the book she had written, but the reconciliation and newfound connections she had fostered. As she closed her eyes for the last time, she knew that her story of resilience and love would live on through Dylan and everyone she had touched. Noah sat alone in the quiet study of his expansive home, the weight of silence pressing heavily upon him. The once vibrant space, filled with accolades and reminders of his professional triumphs, now felt hollow. He clutched the first letter Alice had left behind, her elegant handwriting a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling within him. As he unfolded the letter, memories flooded his mind. 10 years of shared dreams, laughter, and the gradual erosion of their once unbreakable bond. Alice's words were a poignant blend of love, forgiveness, and the painful truths he had long ignored. She spoke of her journey, the strength she found in leaving a life that no longer nurtured her, and her hope for Dylan's future. Tears welled up in Noah's eyes as he read her heartfelt reflections. "I never realized how much I was losing until it was too late," he whispered to himself. Each letter unraveled the layers of his own neglect, forcing him to confront the consequences of his relentless ambition. Alice had always been his anchor, the silent strength that balanced his chaotic pursuits, yet he had taken her unwavering support for granted. Determined to honor her memory, Noah began to make changes in his life. He reached out to Dylan, seeking to rebuild the fractured relationship. Their initial conversations were awkward, laden with unspoken resentment and years of distance. But Noah persisted, sharing stories from his own journey of regret and the profound lessons he had learned from Alice's letters. One evening, Noah invited Dylan to join him for dinner, a simple gesture symbolizing his commitment to healing their bond. As they sat across from each other, the tension in the air began to dissolve. Dylan, still guarded, listened as Noah spoke, candidly about his mistakes and his newfound understanding of what truly mattered. "I've been lost, Dylan," Noah confessed, his voice tinged with remorse. "Alice showed me what love and presence really mean. I want to be the father you deserve, the one she always believed I could be." Dylan studied his father's earnest expression, the sincerity in his eyes mirroring the pain they had both endured. Slowly, he began to open up, sharing his own struggles and the void left by Alice's absence. The conversation, though difficult, marked the beginning of a renewed connection, a mutual effort to bridge the gap that years of neglect had created. Meanwhile, Margaret, witnessing the transformation in Noah, softened her stance. She joined Noah and Dylan in their efforts to honor Alice's legacy, fostering a sense of unity that had long been absent. Together, they organized community events, inspired by Alice's book, turning their grief into a source of strength and inspiration for others facing similar hardships. Noah's professional life also underwent a profound shift. He scaled back his relentless pursuit of success, prioritizing his family and personal well-being instead. The once insatiable drive that had consumed him was replaced by a newfound appreciation for the simple joys of life and the importance of meaningful relationships. As months turned into years, the echoes of Alice's presence remained a guiding force in their lives. Dylan flourished under his father's attentive care, and the family, once fragmented, found solace in their shared journey of healing. Noah often found himself reflecting on Alice's unwavering strength, drawing inspiration from her resilience to navigate the challenges that life continued to present. One sunny afternoon, Noah stood on the porch of their home, gazing out at the horizon where the ocean met the sky. He felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that Alice's legacy lived on through their efforts to create a loving and supportive family. The letters she had left behind were not just reminders of what he had lost, but beacons guiding him toward a future filled with hope, love, and the promise of redemption. In honoring Alice's memory, Noah had found his own path to forgiveness and fulfillment, proving that even in the wake of profound loss, the human spirit has the capacity to heal, grow, and ultimately find peace.